Han Sora walked through the narrow hallway of the warship Tabong with her head down. She kept her eyes on the metal floor and counted her steps. It was a habit she had developed long ago. Counting helped her stay calm when she felt the eyes of others on her back. The ship was massive. It carried over 800 crew members and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But to Sora, it felt like a cage. A cage filled with people who looked at her like she did not belong. She was 24 years old, small and thin, with black hair that she always tied back in a simple knot. Her voice was soft, so soft that people often asked her to repeat herself. And when they did, she would feel her face grow hot, and her words would come out even quieter than before. Today was like every other day. She had a meeting with the tactical team in Conference Room 3, but she had no choice. When she entered the room, the other officers were already seated around the long table. Captain Bake Teho sat at the head. He was a large man with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He had fought in 3 wars and won medals that Sora could not even name. He looked at her for a moment, then looked away, as if she was not worth his attention. Commander Kong Jinsu sat to the captain's right. He was younger than Teho, but his eyes were cold, and his smile was cruel. When Sora took her seat at the far end of the table, Jinsu let out a small laugh. "Ah, our little mouse has arrived," he said. A few officers chuckled. Sora said nothing. She opened her tablet and pretended to read something on the screen. The meeting began. They talked about patrol routes and supply lines. They talked about the Velen Empire, a race of reptile-like aliens who had been pushing against human territory for years. The Velen were strong and violent. They believed that power was everything, and they thought humans were weak. Sora listened carefully. She had spent weeks studying Velen battle tactics. She had found patterns in how they moved their ships. She had ideas, good ideas. But every time she tried to speak, her throat would tighten and her voice would fail her. "We should increase patrols near Sector 7, one officer said. Sora raised her hand slightly. "I think." "The Velen won't attack Sector 7, Commander Jinsu cut in. "They have no reason to." Sora lowered her hand. Her idea died in her throat. The meeting ended an hour later. Sora was the first to leave. She walked quickly, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. She did not stop until she reached the observation deck. It was her favorite place on the ship. A large window looked out into the endless black of space. Stars glittered like tiny diamonds scattered across dark cloth. Here, she could breathe. Here, no one laughed at her. She sat down on the cold floor and pulled out her tablet. On the screen was a map of Velen fleet movements from the past 6 months. She had collected this data herself, piece by piece, from old battle reports and intercepted signals. No one had asked her to do this. No one even knew she was doing it. But Sora saw things that others missed. She saw how the Velen always positioned their flagship at the center of their formation. She saw how their smaller ships never acted without orders from above. She saw the tiny delays between commands, the moments of hesitation when the chain of command was disrupted. The Velen were strong, but they were also rigid. They followed rules that could not bend, and rules that could not bend could be broken. Sora made notes on her tablet. She ran simulations. In her private world of numbers and patterns, she was not timid. She was powerful. The ship's lights dimmed to signal night cycle. Sora was about to return to her quarters when a voice came over the speakers. "All senior staff to the bridge. Repeat. All senior staff to the bridge. This is not a drill." Sora's heart began to race. She was not senior staff. But something in the captain's voice made her stand up anyway. She made her way toward the bridge, staying in the shadows, watching. When she arrived, the bridge was filled with tension. Officers moved quickly between stations. On the main screen was a distress signal, flashing red. "It's Colony Dury 7, Lieutenant Yoon Hana said. She was the communications officer, a woman with kind eyes and a warm voice. She was one of the few people on the ship who ever smiled at Sora. "The Velen have attacked. They're requesting immediate help." Captain Tejo stood with his arms crossed. His face was like stone. "How many Velen ships?" "At least 15 warships, sir." "Maybe more." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. 15 warships. The Taebong was alone. They were outnumbered, 15 to 1. "That's a full invasion fleet," Commander Jinsu said. His voice was quieter now, the arrogance gone. "If we go in there, we die." "There are 40,000 civilians on that colony," Hana said. "Women, children." Tejo closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Set a course for Dury 7, maximum speed." The bridge erupted into activity. Officers rushed to their stations. Sora stood frozen by the door, her tablet clutched to her chest. She heard 2 officers whispering nearby. "This is suicide," one said. "We don't stand a chance," the other replied. Sora looked at her tablet, at the patterns she had studied, at the weakness she had found. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words would not come. So she stood there in silence, watching as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them all toward a battle they could not win. But deep inside her mind, a small voice whispered, "I know how to beat them. I just need someone to listen." The stars stretched into lines of light as the Taebong raced toward its fate. And Han Sora, the girl everyone called a mouse, began to plan. The Taebong dropped out of faster-than-light speed with a violent shudder. Sora grabbed the wall to steady herself as the ship groaned around her. Through the bridge windows, she saw Colony Dury 7 for the first time. It was burning. The colony was built on a gray moon, its cities protected by large domes. But several of those domes had been cracked open. Fire and smoke poured into the black sky. Small civilian ships tried to escape, but they were trapped. A wall of Velen warships surrounded the moon like a net of death. Sora counted the enemy vessels. 15. No, 17. Each one was larger than the Taebong, covered in dark armor and sharp spines. They looked like predators made of metal. "They've seen us," Lieutenant Hana reported. Her voice was steady, but Sora could see the fear in her eyes. Captain Tejo stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. "Open a channel. Let's see if we can talk." A face appeared. It was not human. The Velen Admiral had green scales and yellow eyes with thin black slits for pupils. His mouth was wide, filled with rows of small sharp teeth. 2 curved horns grew from his head. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I am Admiral Gorath of the Velen Empire. You are 1 ship. We are 17. Are humans truly this foolish?" Tejo did not flinch. "Admiral, there are civilians on that colony. Non-combatants, women and children. Let them leave, and we will withdraw." Gorath made a sound that might have been laughter. "Civilians? You mean the weak ones? The ones who cannot fight?" He leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming. "In the Velen Empire, those who cannot fight do not deserve to live. Your weak protect your weaker. This is why humans will always lose. We're not here to debate philosophy. I'm asking for mercy." "Mercy." Gorath said the word like it was poison. "Mercy is for cowards. Surrender your ship now, human. Give up, and I will grant your crew quick deaths. Refuse, and I will make you watch as I burn that colony to ash before I kill you slowly." The screen went dark. Silence hung over the bridge. Sora could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Battle stations," Tejo said quietly. "Prepare all weapons. We fight." Officers moved to obey, But Sora could see the truth on their faces. They did not believe they could win. They were preparing to die. Sora's tablet felt heavy in her hands. She had spent all night going over her data. She knew the Velen weakness. She knew their patterns. If only someone would listen. She moved through the chaos of the bridge until she found Lieutenant Hana. "Hana," she said softly. Hana turned. "Sora, what are you doing here? You should get to a safe area." Sora's voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "I've been studying the Velen. I know how they think. I know how they fight. There might be a way." "Sora, that's wonderful, but right now—" "Please," Sora said. "I need to talk to the captain." Hana looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Come with me." They approached Captain Tejo together. He was studying the tactical display, watching the Velen ships move into attack formation. "Captain," Hana said, "Analyst Han has information that might help." Tejo glanced at Sora. His eyes were tired and filled with the weight of impossible choices. "Speak." Sora opened her mouth, but before she could say a word, Commander Jinsu stepped between them. "Captain, we don't have time for this," Jinsu said. "The Velen are charging weapons. We need to—" "I found a weakness," Sora said. Her voice came out louder than she intended. Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. Her face grew hot. Her hands shook. But she did not stop. "The Velen command structure. It's their weakness. All their orders come from the flagship. If we can—" "What?" Jinsu laughed. "Take out their flagship? With one ship against 17? Do you even hear yourself?" He turned to Tejo. "Captain, this is a waste of time. She's a nervous wreck. She's not a soldier. She's barely even useful as an analyst." The words hit Sora like a punch to the stomach. She felt her confidence crumble. Her voice died in her throat. "That's enough," Hana said sharply. But the damage was done. Tejo had already turned back to the tactical display. "Everyone to their stations. Prepare for combat." Sora stood alone, in the middle of the bridge, as officers rushed past her. No one looked at her. No one asked what she had wanted to say. She walked slowly back to her station, a small desk in the corner with a single monitor. She sat down and stared at the screen. The Velen fleet was moving. The battle was about to begin. "They never listen," she whispered to herself. "But I can see it. I can see how they move." She pulled up her data again. The patterns, the weaknesses, the rigid chain of command that made the Velen strong but also made them fragile. She saw it all so clearly. And she saw something else, something she had not noticed before. The Velen Honor Code. She had read about it in old records. The Velen believed that refusing a challenge was the greatest shame. If a commander was challenged directly, they could not retreat. They could not refuse. To do so would mean disgrace worse than death. Sora's fingers moved across her keyboard. She pulled up records of Velen rituals. There it was. Vorath Kal. A duel of minds, not weapons. The first Velen weapons fire struck the Tabong. The ship shook violently. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. "Shields at 70%, someone shouted. "Return fire," Tejo commanded. Sora gripped her console as another blast rocked the ship. On her screen, she watched the Tabong's weapons hit a Velen cruiser. The enemy shields held easily. They were losing. They were going to die. But Sora's mind was already racing ahead. She was not thinking about death. She was thinking about victory. "I know how to beat them," she thought. "I just need one chance." The ship shook again. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the sound of metal tearing. The Velen tide was crushing them. But Han Sora was no longer afraid. She was thinking. And that made her the most dangerous person on the ship. The bridge of the Tabong was filled with smoke and screaming alarms. Red emergency lights flashed in the darkness. Sparks flew from damaged panels. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Sora coughed and pulled herself up from the floor. Her station had been destroyed by an explosion. Glass and twisted metal lay everywhere. She checked herself for injuries. A cut on her forehead was bleeding, but she was alive. Around her, the bridge was chaos. Officers shouted orders that no one could hear over the alarms. Bodies lay still on the ground. Others crawled through the wreckage, trying to reach their stations. "Report!" Captain Tejo's voice cut through the noise. He stood at the center of the bridge, blood running down the side of his face. But he was still standing, still fighting. "Shields are gone, sir," an officer shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 3, 5, and 7. We're venting atmosphere." "Weapons?" "We have only secondary batteries left." Tejo closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, Sora saw something she had never seen before. Despair. Another blast hit the ship. The floor tilted violently. Sora grabbed a broken console to keep from falling. When she looked up, she saw Captain Tejo flying through the air. He hit the wall hard and crumpled to the ground. He did not move. "Captain!" Lieutenant Hana ran to his side. She checked his pulse. "He's alive but unconscious. He needs medical attention now." 2 crew members carried Tejo away. The bridge fell silent for a terrible moment. Then, Commander Jinsu stepped forward. "I'm taking command," he announced. His voice was shaking. His face was pale. "All ships, focus fire on the nearest enemy vessel." "Sir, which one?" an officer asked. "Any of them. Just shoot." The crew looked at each other in confusion. Sora watched as Jinsu stumbled from station to station, giving orders that made no sense. He told the engines to go forward and backward at the same time. He ordered weapons to fire at targets that did not exist. He was panicking. On the main screen, the Velen fleet moved closer. Admiral Gorath's flagship led the way. The alien ships were forming a tight circle around the Taebong, like wolves surrounding wounded prey. Gorath's face appeared on the screen again. He was smiling, showing all of his sharp teeth. "Humans," he said, "your ship is broken. Your captain has fallen. Your crew is dying, and still you do not surrender. Is this what you call courage? I call it stupidity." "We will never surrender to you," Jinsu said, but his voice cracked. Gorath laughed. "Then you will die tired. I will give you 5 minutes to prepare your final prayers to whatever weak gods you worship. There will be nothing left but dust." The screen went dark. 5 minutes. They had 5 minutes to live. Jinsu collapsed into the captain's chair, his head in his hands. "It's over," he muttered. "It's all over." No one moved. No one spoke. The only sounds were the alarms and the distant groans of the dying ship. Then Sora stood up. She did not know where her courage came from. Maybe it was because there was nothing left to lose. Maybe it was because she was tired of being ignored. Or maybe it was because she finally understood that being quiet did not mean being weak. She walked to her console, or what was left of it. She connected her tablet to the ship's main computer. Her fingers flew across the screen, faster than they had ever moved before. Lieutenant Hana saw her. "Sora? What are you doing?" Sora did not look up. "I found it," she said. Her voice was quiet, but there was something different in it now. "I found their pattern." "What pattern?" "The Velen, their weakness." Sora's eyes scanned the data on her screen. "They're rigid. Every order comes from the flagship. Every ship waits for Gorath's command before they act. There's a delay, a small one, but it's there. 0.3 seconds between when Gorath gives an order and when his fleet responds. How does that help us? By itself, it doesn't." Sora finally looked up. Her eyes were bright and focused. The timid girl was gone. In her place was someone else, someone dangerous. But the Velen have something else, an honor code. If their admiral is challenged directly, he cannot refuse. He cannot retreat. If he does, he loses everything. His rank, his honor, his life. You want to challenge Gorath? Yes. Sora pulled up a file on her tablet. There's a ritual called Vorath Kal, a challenge of wills. Two commanders test their strategy against each other. Whoever suffers more in 60 seconds loses. Gorath cannot refuse without admitting that a human scared him. Hana stared at her. You learned their language, their customs? I had a lot of time alone, Sora said simply. For a long moment, Hana said nothing. Then she nodded. What do you need? I need you to open a channel to Gorath. The commander? The commander is broken, Sora said. It was not cruel, it was just true. She looked at Jinsu, still slumped in the captain's chair, staring at nothing. He cannot lead us. No one can. Except maybe me. Hana looked at Jinsu. She looked at the dying ship around her. She looked at the civilian transports still trapped near the colony, waiting to be destroyed. Then she looked at Sora, the small, quiet girl that everyone had laughed at. The mouse. Do it, Hana said. She moved to the communication station and began working. Channel opening in 30 seconds. Sora stood up straight. She wiped the blood from her forehead. She took a deep breath. In 30 seconds, she would face an alien admiral who had destroyed hundreds of human ships. She would challenge him using his own language, his own customs, his own pride. She was terrified. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. But she did not run. She did not hide. She stood in the middle of the broken bridge, surrounded by smoke and fire and death, and she prepared to fight. Channel open, Hana announced. Admiral Gorath's face appeared on the screen. His yellow eyes widened slightly when he saw Sora standing where the captain should be. What is this? He demanded. Where is your commander? Why does a small female speak for your ship? Sora opened her mouth, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong in perfect Velen. Admiral Gorath, I am Han Sora, and I challenge you to Vorath Kal. The silence that followed Sora's words was complete. Every person on the bridge stopped moving. Even the alarms seemed to grow quiet. On the screen, Admiral Gorath's yellow eyes went wide. His mouth opened, then closed. For the first time since the battle began, the great Velen commander had no words. Sora stood perfectly still. Inside, her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. But outside, she showed nothing. She had learned long ago how to hide her fear. Now that skill would save them all. You, Gorath finally spoke. You know of Vorath Kal? I do, Sora replied in Velen. She had practiced the words 100 times in her quarters, whispering them to herself in the dark. I know your language. I know your customs. I know your laws. And I know that you cannot refuse my challenge, not without bringing shame upon yourself and your entire fleet. Behind Gorath, she could see other Velen officers watching. Their eyes moved between their admiral and the small human female on the screen. Sora understood what they were thinking. If Gorath refused, he would be seen as a coward, a leader who feared a single human woman. Gorath's claws scraped against his command chair. You think you are clever, human, but you do not understand what you are asking for. Vorath Kal is a test of pure strategy. One command each. The fleet that suffers greater losses in 60 seconds proves their commander unworthy. I understand completely, Sora said. And you still challenge me? You with your broken ship and your wounded crew? Against my 17 warships? Gorath leaned forward. Are you insane or merely stupid? I am neither. Sora took a step forward. I am human, and humans do not need strength to win. We need only one thing, the right moment. Accept my challenge, or admit to your entire fleet that you are afraid of a small, timid human girl. The bridge of the Velen flagship erupted in angry hissing. Officers shouted at each other. Gorath silenced them with a raised claw. Very well, he growled. I accept. Prepare your final order, human. You have 30 seconds. Then we begin. The screen flickered but stayed on. Both sides would watch the challenge play out in real time. Lieutenant Hana rushed to Sora's side. "Sora, what's your plan? Our weapons are almost destroyed. Our shields are gone. What can we possibly do?" "Get me control of the ship's navigation and what's left of our weapons," Sora said. Her voice was calm now, focused. "And I need access to the reactor core ejection system." "The reactor, but that would—" "Trust me." Hana hesitated for only a moment. Then she moved to the engineering console and began working. Around the bridge, other officers watched in confusion. Commander Jinsu had finally looked up from his hands, his face blank with shock. "What is happening?" he asked, but no one answered him. Sora pulled up the tactical display on her tablet. She could see the entire battlefield. The Velen fleet was arranged in a tight formation around the Taebong, their ships close together for maximum firepower. The civilian transports from Colony Duri 7 were clustered behind the Velen line, trapped and waiting for death. "Close formation," Sora thought. "That's your first mistake." "Time," she called out. 15 seconds, Hana replied. Sora's fingers moved across her tablet. She entered a series of commands. Navigation, weapons, reactor systems, everything connected, everything ready. 10 seconds. She looked at the screen. Gorath was watching her with hatred in his yellow eyes. Something she had not expected to see. Doubt. 5 seconds. Sora took a deep breath. She thought about all the time she had been ignored, all the time she had been laughed at, all the time she had been told she was too quiet, too weak, too small to matter. Today, she would show them all what quiet could do. "Begin!" Gorath roared. Sora pressed the button. On the screen, the Taebong suddenly lurched forward. Its engines, damaged but still working, fired at maximum power. The ship shot toward the Velen flagship in what looked like a suicide charge. "She's insane," Jinsu shouted. "She's going to ram them." But Sora was not finished. As the Taebong raced forward, a second command activated. The ship's damaged reactor core, the heart of the vessel, was ejected from the back of the ship. It tumbled through space, spinning toward the center of the Velen formation. Gorath saw the charge. He saw the easy kill. He gave his order. All ships concentrate fire on the Taebong. The Velen fleet obeyed without thinking. 17 warships turned their weapons toward one target. They moved closer together, tightening their formation to maximize their firepower. And that was when the reactor core exploded. The blast was blinding. Pure white light filled the screen. The Taebong, which had already begun a hard turn away from the explosion, was pushed by the shockwave, but survived. The ship rolled behind a large asteroid fragment, using it as a shield. The Velen were not so lucky. 4 cruisers, caught directly in the blast, were destroyed instantly. 2 more were crippled, their weapons and engines dead. The flagship itself was hit hard, its sensors burned out, its shields overloaded. But the most important effect was chaos. The Velen chain of command was broken. Ships that survived were spinning out of control, their crews blinded and confused. They had no orders. They could not act. And in that moment of chaos, the civilian transports saw their chance. The gap in the Velen formation was wide open. One by one, then in groups, the small ships raced through, escaping toward open space. On the Taebong, the crew watched in stunned silence. "Damage to enemy fleet," Hana reported, her voice shaking. 4 ships destroyed, 2 disabled, flagship damaged. Civilian transports are escaping. They're going to make it. Sora looked at the screen. Gorath's face had reappeared, but it was different now. His scales had gone pale. His yellow eyes were wide with shock and rage. 60 seconds have passed, Sora said quietly. I lost nothing. You lost 6 ships. By the laws of Vorath Kal, I have won. Gorath's mouth twisted. His claws dug into his chair so hard that the metal cracked. You tricked me, he hissed. No, Sora said. I outthought you. There is a difference. The Velen officers on the flagship were staring at their admiral. He had accepted the challenge. He had lost. By Velen law, he could not continue the attack without admitting his defeat was false, and that would mean death. "This is not over, human," Gorath growled. Sora met his gaze. She did not blink. She did not look away. "Yes," she said softly. "It is. Your move, Admiral." Gorath said nothing. The screen went dark. 30 seconds later, the remaining Velen ships began to turn away. One by one, they retreated into the darkness of space. The battle was over. Sora's legs finally gave out. She collapsed into the captain's chair, her whole body shaking. The fear she had been holding back flooded through her all at once. Tears ran down her face. Lieutenant Hana knelt beside her. "You did it," she whispered. "Sora, you saved us. You saved everyone." Sora could not speak. She could only sit there, crying and trembling, as the crew around her slowly began to understand what had happened. The timid girl had won the battle with one move. The Taebong drifted through space like a wounded animal. Smoke still poured from its damaged hull. 3 of its decks were open to the void. Half its systems were offline. But it was alive, and so was everyone on board. Sora sat alone on the observation deck. She had not moved from that spot in hours. Through the large window, she watched rescue ships arrive from Earth's nearest military base. They brought medical supplies, engineers, and fresh crew members. They also brought journalists. News of the battle had spread across human space like fire. The story was almost too strange to believe. A single ship against 17. A small, quiet analyst who challenged an alien admiral to a duel of minds. A reactor core turned into a bomb. 40,000 civilians saved from certain death. By the time the sun rose on Earth, Han Sora was famous. She did not feel famous. She felt tired. Tired and empty and still slightly sick from all the fear she had felt during the battle. Heroes in stories always seem so brave and certain. Sora had been neither. She had been terrified every single moment. But she had done it anyway. Footsteps approached behind her. She did not turn around. "I thought I might find you here." The voice belonged to Captain Tejo. Sora finally looked up. He stood in the doorway, his head wrapped in bandages, one arm in a sling. He looked older than before, but his eyes were clear. "Captain," Sora said, starting to stand. "Should you be walking? Your injuries—" "Sit," Tejo said. It was not a command. It was a request. He walked slowly across the deck and lowered himself to the floor beside her. For a long moment, they sat in silence, watching the stars. "I was told what happened," Tejo finally said. "All of it. How you challenged Gorath. How you used their own honor against them. How you saved the civilians and the ship." He paused. "How Commander Jinsu tried to stop you." Sora said nothing. "I also know that you tried to tell me your plan before the battle, and I did not listen." Tejo's voice was heavy with regret. "I looked at you and saw only what was on the surface. A quiet girl who could barely speak in meetings. I never thought to look deeper." "It's all right, Captain." "No, it is not." Tejo turned to face her. "I have been a soldier for 30 years. I have fought in battles across a dozen star systems. And in all that time, I have never seen anything like what you did. You did not win with weapons or strength. You won with your mind, with patience, with the courage to act when it mattered most." Sora felt tears forming in her eyes again. She blinked them away. "I was scared," she whispered. "The whole time, I was so scared I could barely breathe." "I know," Tejo said. "That is what made it brave. Being brave does not mean having no fear. It means acting despite the fear. And you, Analyst Han, are the bravest person I have ever met." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and shiny. A medal. The Star of Earth, the highest honor a human soldier could receive. "This belongs to you," he said. Sora stared at the medal. "I can't accept that. I'm not a soldier." "You are now." Tejo pressed the medal into her hand, "whether you want to be or not." 3 months later, Sora stood in a great hall on Earth. Thousands of people filled the seats. Cameras broadcast her image to billions across human space. She wore a new uniform now, with the rank of commander on her shoulders. The ceremony was long and full of speeches. Politicians talked about human courage and the spirit of exploration. Military leaders described the strategic importance of the victory. Journalists asked questions about her childhood, her training, her thoughts during the battle. Sora answered them all with her usual quiet voice. She did not enjoy the attention. She never would. But she understood why it mattered. The galaxy was watching. The Velen were watching. And they needed to see that humans were not weak. After the ceremony, she was offered positions on 12 different flagships. Every admiral in the fleet wanted her on their bridge. She refused them all. Instead, she asked for a teaching position at the Earth Defense Academy. "Why?" the fleet admiral asked her. "You could command any ship you want. You could lead armies." "Because there are others like me," Sora said. "Quiet ones. Ones who see patterns that others miss. Ones who are told they are too small, too soft, too timid to matter. I want to find them. I want to teach them that being quiet is not the same as being weak." The academy gave her a classroom. Within a year, her course was the most popular in the school. Students called it the Sora method. It taught observation, patience, and the power of acting at the right moment. Her graduates went on to become some of the finest tactical minds in human history. Far across the galaxy, the Velen Empire told stories of their own. Admiral Gorath had been executed for his failure. His name was erased from their records. But Sora's name lived on. The Velen called her the Silent Fang, a human who did not roar or charge or show her strength. A human who waited in silence until the perfect moment, then struck without mercy. They warned their young officers about her. They studied her tactics in their war academies. And they feared her. Years passed. Sora grew older. Her hair turned gray. Her steps grew slower. But her eyes never lost their sharpness. She continued to teach until her body could no longer carry her to the classroom. On her final day at the academy, a young student approached her. The girl was small and quiet, with nervous eyes that avoided contact. "Commander Han," the girl said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you do it? How did you find the courage to stand up when everyone ignored you?" Sora smiled. It was a question she had been asked 1,000 times, but she never tired of answering it. "I will tell you a secret," she said. "They thought I was timid because I was quiet. They thought I was weak because I did not speak. But they were wrong. I was quiet because I was watching. I was silent because I was learning. And when I finally spoke, I had something worth saying." The young girl looked at her with wide eyes. "Remember," Sora continued, "the loudest voice in the room is not always the strongest. Sometimes, the strongest voice is the one that waits, a one that watches, the one that speaks only when it matters." She reached out and placed her hand on the girl's shoulder. "You have that voice inside you. I can see it. Now go find it." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. Then she bowed and walked away. Sora watched her go. Another quiet one. Another hidden blade waiting to be sharpened. She turned and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there the Velen were still talking about her. Somewhere out there, new threats were rising. Somewhere out there, the next battle was waiting to be fought. But she was not worried, because she knew the truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was never its ships, or its guns, or its armies. It was its people. the quiet ones who watched and learned, the small ones who refused to give up, the timid ones who found their courage when it mattered most. Han Sora closed her eyes and smiled. Her work was done, but the story was just beginning.